David, could I impose on you to scratch out some notes?
You could ask, but I will confess that it may not be up to normal standards.
Well, we won't hold you to that. We just need to document that we met, I guess. Would be the best thing.
Well, I was just grabbed the agenda next to me and writing on the back of it, but is it incumbent on me then to like type these out and distribute them? Because that's where it might become more difficult. I don't have technology at home that, my Chromebook is so small that I can't distinguish the
Well,
letters.
you know, we'll figure it out from there. If you can
Okay.
get me some scribbles, I can try to type something for you.
Okay.
How's that? Between the two of us, our memory might be good enough to get a document.
Well, there will be the recording on YouTube too, so that's always helpful.
Oh, okay, cool. That's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's good somebody's on top of things. Thanks, Kristen. And I do appreciate you getting everything coordinated. That's very helpful. All right, we'll call the meeting to order. The minutes from the last meeting, Kevin distributed shortly after.
Question,
Yes.
Mr. President? Do we have a quorum?
I don't know what the quorum is. We have 10 members, so.
So 4 probably would not be a quorum.
So I don't know how you can take action on the minutes if you don't have a quorum.
Yeah. We'll just go ahead and get updates. Maybe you're right. I suppose we have to have, does anybody know what the official rules are for city committees?
I don't know the number for this one off the top of my head.
I would presume it would be at least 50% though.
Yeah, at least 50
Yeah,
or.
so, all right,
over
we'll
50.
just do this as an informal meeting then. We can't even approve minutes.
Note to self, regional planning, we do a majority of those present. So it makes it really simple.
Yeah.
So you don't have there's not a set number because there was times
Yeah,
that
I
we would get
don't-
together and not have a quorum as a
I
staff.
know for sure we do not do majority present, we do majority of the members.
All right, so I know we have 10 members, so we'll just roll with an informational meeting, if that's okay, since we're here. We rolled out of bed, probably less coffee than normal, and
And could I ask that everybody speak up? I have an ear infection. I can't hear real well today, so I would appreciate it. All right, thank you.
We'll do our best.
Thank you.
Judy. All right, so that being said, we'll skip the approval of the minutes. We'll go to new business and club. I think the main thing that we wanted to talk about was Columbus Ave streetscapes and get the juices flowing on that. So whomever, Aaron.
That's me, thank you.
All right.
I will give you a little bit of an update here. So we are starting off a design process for Columbus Avenue streetscape. It's gonna build on the concept that was adopted in the downtown master plan, but there will be the whole first phase is gonna be community engagement and like testing different scenarios. Because when you go from a concept to the actual streetscape, we have to think about how that's gonna affect every single door of every business of the architecture, right? The scope is from Adams Street down to Water Street, so we're gonna stop right at Shade Mylander Plaza, so it's just the streetscape of Columbus Avenue. Was 2 city commission meetings ago where they gave us the authority to move forward with the project. I'm trying to look at the date for you. I think it was on February 14th. Osborne Engineering is the lead, so they worked on Shoreline Drive and the Jackson Street Pier. They're very familiar with the area. Steve Cook is going to be the project manager on that team.
Where are they from?
They're out of Cleveland, and they also have an Akron office. I think the Akron office might actually be their main office. I can't remember. They are going to do the project leadership, roadway drainage, traffic maintenance, lighting, and traffic control design. And then on their team is MKSK. They are the firm that led the downtown plan. So they're very familiar, and they're the ones that authored the illustration of the concept in the downtown plan. So they're very familiar with the area. They're gonna do planning and urban design, landscape architecture, and community engagement. And their Cleveland office will be leading that part of the landscape architecture. They also have 3 other engineering partners on the team. KS Associates will do the survey and base mapping, and KS specializes in coastal design and coastal engineering, so they'll be a great partner on the team as well. There's a team called NEAS. They're going to provide geotechnical investigation and engineering and subsurface utility. So they're going to be thinking about what's underground, what's the soil like, and what are those conditions where all those utilities are. And then Lawhon will provide environmental documentation. It's a very small part of the scope. They're going to Lawhon, LAWHON. They're going to document environmental conditions, so we are prepared to apply for any state and federal funding to help with construction. So that it's a very small piece of the scope.
Did you bid these sections out separately, or they were bid as one contract?
No, this was bid as one. It's the Osborne lead, so that they are holding the contract. This is the team that they built and proposed that got selected.
It's a lot of subcontractors.
Yeah, it's a big project.
It sounds expensive. Do you have a dollar amount?
It's $597,000 contract for the design. And that's going to get us all the way to a set of construction documents that we can then bid the project out for construction. So they said it's going to be an 11-month process. We're hoping we can wrap that up in 2022. Might stretch into 23, but hopefully we'll get it done this year. And then construction is the timeline will be part of this conversation of the design process, because we have a lot of moving parts. We're, tourist-oriented city, so we don't want to we want to keep our summers as clear from construction as we can, but at the same time, you can't pour concrete in the winter, right? So it'll be a balance there. It'll be a balance with the State Theater. We expect to be doing their construction and a grand opening at some point, so we want to try to not get in their way. So it's going to be a bit of a balance, and we'll work out that construction timeline as part of the design process. But we hope that we can do the construction in 23, and then we'll have a whole new streetscape in 24. But that's the most aggressive timeline. So I mentioned the first phase is going to include community engagement. We're going to have some stakeholder conversations and be testing the different sections of the roadway and how that's all going to, how the streetscape is going to look. There's going to be a public art component. The Public Arts Commission is reserving funding as part of what they are in charge of to think about public art and how those moments will happen. It's not part of the design process, but it's like a consideration. So here's a good moment for public art. We'll make sure that we reserve the space for it in the streetscape design, so then we can do maybe a public art, like a juried art selection or something like that to place after the construction. So we'll see what that looks like, but that's a consideration as well. I think that's my high level. Do you all have questions for me at this time? I'll be back to engage with you multiple times about this.
Is the Jackson Street Hotel parking lot part of this project or not?
It is not, so that'll be separate. We expect, from my understanding, and that's Jonathan Holliday has been working on how to approach that. I believe that the city will issue a request for qualifications for a developer to come in to develop that site. That's what we would like to see, is someone come in and propose a development on the whole site, but that would be a totally separate project.
I don't remember exactly, but will we be losing all the parking on Columbus Avenue?
Oh, no.
Okay.
The concept shows switching from angled parking to parallel parking, and that is a small sacrifice to what gets us almost 12 extra feet to deal with. And that's an answer to the number one thing we heard from people when we were engaging with them is bigger sidewalks, more space for outdoor dining, outdoor retail. So it just puts the street in balance a little bit more, so we have a lot more room for pedestrian activity, but it doesn't sacrifice that many parking spaces at all.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, David.
Oh, and in trying to look at the notes as I'm writing them down, I didn't finish enough of MKSK downtown plan. They're from Cleveland, and what's their part of this?
Landscape architecture
Okay.
and community engagement.
Okay, that's why I started right, it was community engagement.
Is there a center of the street landscaping component or design component?
In the concept, it does not have a center
Okay.
boulevard, but there are expanded tree lawns on each side for, the concept was called like a linear park, thinking about how those green edges can lead you down into the water.
So, and maybe this is a question for Aaron, don't you store your snow in the center of the street when we get significant snowfall?
Used to, I mean, have till now, but.
I guess I would say it depends on what you call storing. We create a windrow while the event is happening in the center of the street, and as we go through over the next day or two, we remove it. So it is temporarily there. I think the last event, it was there for maybe a day, maybe two.
And then you take it down to Shelby Street parking lot there and. just let it
Yes.
go.
Yeah, it goes into the overflow parking lot down at Shelby.
With the 11-month timeline, when would we expect public input?
So
What's that process going to look like, or do we have an idea yet?
the first about 5 months of the project is phase one, and that's where all the community engagement will happen. In a design process, you get to an agreed upon design, and then they go make some extremely technical drawings. So before we get to that, before they start doing the extremely technical drawings that goes to the inch of what will be, installed, those first 5 months will be when we're doing the engagement. We have our very first kickoff meeting with them on Friday, and so actually tomorrow. So that's when we'll start talking about high-level schedule, timing. There's a piece of this that I expect to conduct just internally within the city. So Tandra Frisbee, our youth programs supervisor, wants to engage the kids that come to our rec programs and talk to them about streetscapes and design and how we make trade-off decisions. So we're going to actually do a little bit of engagement with them at some point. So there'll be some city-led engagement and then consultant-led engagement. And we'll figure that all out within the next 2-3 weeks. We'll be working on that schedule, and I'll have more to share next meeting.
Okay. That's kind of where I was wondering.
Is there any preliminary design work done to this date?
There's the high-level concept in the downtown plan, and I don't know that there's any other design on Columbus Ave. Have you studied it before, Aaron? So they'll be doing a survey as part of this to document everything that's there today, the existing conditions, to start leading into that.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. All right. Any other questions on the streetscape? Sounds exciting. It'll be, we continue to improve downtown. Absolutely. That's great.
One more question about that. My general recollection, there was a pretty big article in the Register recently. Like, what is their process? They just pay attention at city commission meeting, or?
Andy
feeds them?
Oriole, who tends to be our lead reporter, reaches out to us all the time, like, hey, what's coming up? What can I write about? What can I print? So that article was a collaboration between Tom Horseman, our communications manager, me, and Eric Webster, city manager, to come up with the article. And then Andy takes a spin on it, but we provided him that information and the drawings and everything.
It just kind of occurs to me that because he's hungry for that news, and it is like people buzzed about that, that it might provide an opportunity to sort of more formalize that as a conduit to pump out that information. I don't know, obviously Eric thinks about those kinds of things, but.
Yeah, I would
Mr.
expect.
Obvious,
I would expect there would be at least a few press releases as part of this process. So like the broader, making sure there's a community education piece and any sort of planning and design. You want people to know about what you're doing and the steps. There's an engagement piece where you want to invite them to the table and ask people questions about what do you want to see? And then there's some technical stuff that you get teams of experts and you sit down with and you work out, the pluses and minuses and
The last big community engagement thing, it seemed like the State Theater played big in that. That room at the State Theater still available, or is now it's the Mylander Pavilion or the fire department? Where would you have city engagement?
That's a good question. We'll figure that out. I would imagine the Mylander Pavilion is a good place for it because it's up and ready. I don't know that room in the State Theater is available because they're working on their design and reconstruction process right now. But yeah, sometimes we can host in here. I know this room feels a little bit more formal, but we'll see what mostly it's determined by the availability of the space and the size of the group we expect to attend.
Okay, thanks.
All right, all good questions. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
We'll look forward to that. We'll move on to then the old business, which would be Justice Center, and that was also part of that meeting. That was a big meeting.
Yes. So I would first like to apologize that I asked Kristen to remove the wrong items from the old business. So I have other things that I'd like to update you on as well, but I can start with the Justice Center. So we are moving forward. That project was really under preliminary design, and we're moving into that detailed design phase. We were really doing a lot of the layout, a lot of the efficiencies, working with police, working with court, and making sure that we had everybody where they needed to be within the building. At that time, we also worked on renderings of the exterior and worked on what we wanted the building to look like. We're still anticipating being done with detailed design and drawings and going out to bid sometime late fall of this year. We're going to try our hardest to play the construction market, which is probably even harder right now than playing the stock market. So we're really going to try to do our best to make sure that we can stay within the budget that we had 2 years ago.
Good luck with that.
Excuse me?
No,
I'm saying good luck with that.
Right, yeah,
Sorry.
it's not easy, and not only the budget, but also the schedule. I mean, a lot of the equipment that we need, the air handlers and those types of things are being delayed right now with construction. So we're going to do our best. We're going to do everything that we can to stay within budget and on schedule, and hopefully we can still open this facility in early 2024. There were renderings. I don't know if you guys have seen those. There were renderings that showed the site plan. We're trying to stay within the footprint of the existing facility. The parking lot on some people call it the north, some call it the east side of the building, but the side near the skate park. So we're staying just within the footprint of that parking lot, and we're not incorporating there's the dual parking lots for the public parking. We're not incorporating the one closest to the tennis court into the site plan. It's likely going to be used for staging of equipment, materials, and those types of things, but we're also making sure that the architect and the contractor and everybody knows that there needs to be access to the sailing club and basically to Battery Park. There needs to be a secondary access point, so they're not going to be allowed to close off the entire site during construction. They're going to have to maintain one of those access points so that the boats can get back in there and they can do what they need to do. And that I won't necessarily give an update on Meg's, but as we're going through the Meg Street project, we're trying to coordinate those two things together to make sure that everybody has access where they need to be.
Just to clarify, from the way I think about it, you were just most recently talking the north side of the tennis court, or are you talking about there being two different distinct parking areas south of the tennis court, like the wraparound?
Yes, so there's the one-way parking that you enter off Meg's and go around, and then you exit the parking lot through that second parking area.
Okay,
So the one closest to the building will be for public parking, and we're going to take a portion of it for secured police parking as well. when the project's over, the one between there and the tennis courts will be maintained as public.
But that's the staging area for the project.
Most likely. I'm guessing they're going to need something, and we're hoping, obviously, that they're not going to take the parking lot near the tennis court, or near the skate park. We're trying to keep that one open for others.
I'm sorry, I don't remember exactly what it looks like, but are you renovating the existing building? You're not tearing it down, is that correct?
That is correct. We are renovating it. There's going to be a new facade put on most of it, especially the more public-facing sides of it. We are going to be, right now, it looks like painting the brick with, and the architect went through all the details of the paint. It's breathable, it's washable, it's got all these other things to it. It's self-cleaning, like all these different types of things. So, on the inside, the majority of the walls are staying, but they are going to be removing a lot of that. The big differences and the big items that are probably going to take the longest is rerouting all the ductwork and electrical and all the other items inside the building that service the different rooms and workstations and all that stuff.
Okay.
And bringing the audio video equipment and the security and the door locks and all, like, you know, the stuff that wasn't put in the 50s, that stuff is being put in now.
Thank you.
So,
All right. Any other questions on the Justice Center? Yes, David?
I think you tried to address this, and again, you talked about coordinating between this project and Meg Street, and then, of course, maintaining access to the sailing club and presumably the tennis courts and all that stuff. Is there a process anticipated when they're going to redesign that whole quadrant down, or that whole area down there? There was like, was it Marus or somebody that has an option on, how does that part go? And is that just unrelated, or is that still coordinating?
no, that's the part that's been fun, is trying to coordinate Battery Park, Meg's, and East Water Street bike path and Justice Center all together over a 3 to 4 year time period, and make sure everybody's talking to each other and having plans that reflect the other person's plans. So Meg Street is going to be awarded at the next commission meeting, so that one should be done this year.
But that's mostly like resurfacing, or does that change the width of it, or?
So what that one does, and the way that it affects this project the most, is we're going to be providing four-way intersections at Water. Right now, it's kind of a two-way, technically two-way, but it's really a three-way, but it's going to be four-way. We're also doing the same thing at Market. So at Market, their driveway into Battery Park is going to change because we're going to curb that, and they're going to have to, we're not allowed to get on private property on Meg's because it's an ODOT project. So we're working with the developer and the current tenant of that site to make sure that they can coordinate connecting our new intersection with their parking lot to maintain that access. So the good thing is Meg's will be finished before the Justice Center starts, so there's not going to be a lot of butting heads and contractors in each other's way. And that's assuming we can get all the water line and sewer materials in this year in a timely manner.
Because there's sewer replacement, new water lines and stuff that go in before the paving. And
Yeah, so what's actually very interesting about it is originally when we started the Meg Street project, there was a difference in size, a dramatic difference in size of the water line right at Washington. So if you headed south on Meg's, it was a lot bigger than if you headed north on Meg's. And we didn't have a real good history of it, but as we got further and further through the project and looked up more of the historical records, when the original water plant that was on the city hall site was taken down, they increased the size along First Street because they were moving to the Big Island facility. So they made the pipe uniform from Big Island all the way to Washington, but that original pipe that was a smaller, I think it was a 12-inch that came out and headed north, was what was continued, and they just made a connection there. So it goes from a large diameter to a smaller diameter pipe at that location. So we're correcting that, and we're going to increase the size there. And that should.
What all does that feed going north from that then?
Right. So that feeds downtown, and the way the water lines work is they're always looped, and so, I mean, it's not just downtown, it's going to be all the way to the west, all the businesses downtown, but even the residential areas to the west. It should help those significantly as well, not only provide more capacity, but also better pressure, and that's some of the stuff we hear, like at the Fike Building, you know, with that many stories. And we don't want to increase the pressure at the plant, because then we're going to get main breaks throughout the city. So we're trying to maintain that balance by doing these things. So not only are we doing the water line, but we're also doing the sewer and doing a sewer separation over there, trying to pull some of the flow off of the interceptor that help possibly relieve some of those overflows downtown and to the eastern part along First Street. It's not
How
gonna.
how does MEGS get to be a DOT project? Is it just funding source? It's not jurisdictional?
It's funding source. Several years ago, I think it was probably in 2017 or 18, we applied for funding, and we got around 800 and some thousand, maybe through regional planning, through ODOT, and it's federal funding that's routed that way. So we got, I can't remember the exact amount, it's like $900,000. And we just bid that project. And with the water and sewer work that's out there, it's well over, it's just over $1 million for the entire project. And we're splitting it through 4 or 5 different sources. But that project is scheduled to be awarded at the next commission meeting on the 14th. Then we'll work with the contractor to mobilize. So Meg Street will be torn up. We've been trying to coordinate the streetscape-ish design from Washington to Water with the Battery Park contractor, provide a little better on-street parking, taking into consideration the transit stop in front of City Hall, or Old City Hall, the Justice Center, and trying to coordinate all those things, put in new connections, water, sewer connections for the Justice Center as well as for Battery Park, so they don't have to come back out with their project. Now, to answer your earlier question, Maroos kind of took a step back when the pandemic hit and said, we need to reevaluate exactly how we're doing this. We have not heard much from them. Now they're still moving forward. They engage with a different entity, and they're still looking at options and ideas and thoughts. So because we have the plan from MKSK previously that kind of showed what they desired at the site, which were those intersections. We're also providing increased capacity for water, sewer, and we're telling them to coordinate with the gas company if they need to do that work as well. So I can't envision a really good scenario of us finishing MEGS entirely and the Justice Center and them coming back in and trying to tear stuff up for utilities. So we're trying to get that out of the way now. As best we can, knowing that we don't have control over Columbia Gas or Maroos on what they're going to need at that site. And I don't think they have a good idea yet since they're reevaluating, but we're going to try to get that out of the way now.
Can you characterize the general scope of the Maroos geography? It doesn't include the old Surf's Up, but it does include the Damon's area. Does it include going out as far as the marina and Battery Park, or is that included too? I mean,
so the
sailing club is still sacrosanct.
Yes, the sailing club and that Sadler Basin is still separate from their lease. They have their own lease at that location. Maroos has the main property from the tennis courts north. They also have the piers that go out, and that's often something that we get a lot of phone calls on, that Meg Street Pier, and then the two that jet off of it. Those are actually not the city's responsibility per the lease. It's theirs to maintain those and keep them open and accessible to the public. Now, we work with them on a regular basis. We'll get the fire and everybody else out there to clean and do those types of things. But their lease really is from the tennis courts and Meg's, and then all the way to and the entire property, not including Surf's Up or the sailing club's portion.
So like when the tall ships come in or other, city events that use that pier, I mean, I can't think of a lot, but I was just down there over the weekend thinking of what a underutilized resource that pier is. I mean, that's part of the lease that Marus will have, is to control that pier?
Yes. Yeah, and I guess I wouldn't say control. I think it's to keep it open to the public and accessible to the public, while also making sure that the maintenance and it's safe and maintained properly. I don't think they necessarily control it, because a lot of that stuff, they have to really come through us to make sure, because we're very adamant that it has to be open to the public unless we give approval for an event or something like that, or for a project, a maintenance type thing.
That point was discussed in another meeting, and I think it was Commission President Murray at the time pointed out that, there's a lease. They have a lease management agreement, whatever we want to call it, but any major changes and so forth still need to be approved by the city. So nothing's going to happen unless ostensibly City Commission, with the advice of this body and others, approve it.
We got enough room for Mike up here, right? I mean, if you wanted to come.
Yeah, I mean, you're more than welcome to join us, Mike.
Yeah, I didn't want to, well, you're probably close to done.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm asking lots of questions because it's a lightly attended,
No, that's quite all right. This is all good stuff, and of course, that lease has been in effect since, 85, I think?
It's been a long time.
Yeah. So
Well, no, there was a new lease.
Yeah,
it was renewed, but
it was assigned.
but the lease that was in existence was assigned to Marus. It wasn't a new lease.
But it was renewed later, or?
Yeah, I mean, I said the original date, it had several renewal dates in it. I think it was like a 50-year lease, but there were renewal dates and updates, escalators in the rent and that type of thing.
I'd love to see it. I've never really read it. Maybe we should take a look at it and see what it says so we know what we're talking about.
I've read it from time to time, but it's been a while, so. All right, so we covered both the Justice Center and Meg Street, which was taken off, but should have been on the agenda, right? So
Yeah.
we've covered those two. You want to keep going then?
Yeah, one thing I would like to point out on Megs is we've been trying very hard, as you guys are aware, to incorporate and construct different sections of the Sandusky Bay Pathway on an annual basis. And this Meg Street piece is the piece that we're going to be building in 2022. So that's going from Sycamore Street, which is where the hook artwork is, all the way up to Water Street. And then next year, we're going to be doing the piece on East Water from where we finished it, where Shoreline Park comes around. I think that's Franklin there, where that comes around and extends all the way to Megs. So by the end of next summer, we'll have that whole thing under completion all the way down to Sycamore Street. So that's something that's real exciting. We're still working on how to properly brand it and what we can include in an ODOT project, and it might be easier just to take some of the features that we want to do, like banners and those types of things, and just do them later, so we don't have to get ODOT's approval and get all this stuff. So we're just going to build it and stripe it for now, come back later and do the rest of the amenities along the path. So
Aaron, what's the all-in cost for the Meg Street improvements?
I knew you were going to ask that. I don't have that on me. I can certainly email and let you know. It's on the agenda for commission on the 14th. I don't remember. I know we even just talked about the breakdown yesterday between sewer, water, issue 8 and ODOT funding, and we're hiring a consultant for construction inspection because the ODOT inspection is a lot more difficult. So factoring that in, I think it was 1.819.
Okay. And when do you anticipate everything to be done? What's the?
Supposed to be fall of this year. I'm hoping to get the utility portion and the underground work out of the way before the travel season and before we get a lot more vehicles. But that's going to depend on availability of materials.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, very good. Next item, Aaron, we have the pathway. Is there anything additional you have for that?
So as far as the pathway and the landing together, we're still moving forward with the acquisition phase of it, as we've talked about repeatedly. But one thing that I did want to bring up is the raise application is the city is working with many other entities in the county through a project that ODOT is really taking the lead on. ODOT central office, their planning folks, and their regional office in District 3 in Ashland absolutely fell in love with the pathway updated plans and the aggressiveness of the city to go after funding. But they also, prior to that, fell in love with the trans systems analysis that was conducted by the county through regional planning several years ago that talked about what to do on Route 6 with all the roundabouts at Perkins and Rye Beach and those other areas, which was actually what the city got funded for the Cleveland Road roundabout and other things. So they're trying to link all of these things together. So you've got the county, you've got the railroad, you've got, the various entities within the county, the townships, the Huron and Sandusky, all trying to go in on a collaborative effort to see if we can get funding through 2 or 3 different state and federal grant opportunities. The city's portion, if we're successful, would be the 2 segments on the landing from the west side of Heminger Ditch, so from Knights Inn all the way to Cedar Point Drive, including the bridge over Pipe Creek, and then the section on First Street before it starts heading northwesterly on the old pier track. So if we get funded, that's what we would do. And there hasn't been it sounds like they're going to go after it. They're looking for letters and looking for, support letters and things like that. I think support letters from any entity, including somebody like this board, would be very helpful as well. I can distribute that. If you guys are interested in doing that, I'll try to get one from the commission and everybody else that could be interested in providing a letter. Those applications are due in April, I believe, so they're on a really tight track. And I think the city really has zeroed in on the sections. There was a lot of talk about which sections could be included and wouldn't be included. And, the city was weighing the option of going on our own because we've already submitted for this in the past and it would just be regurgitating some of the information from previous. But, we really want to be part of the team and part of the county and not put in an application that competes against this ODOT and county application. So, being a joint effort, it might be a lot more appealing, we're hoping, to the federal legislators. So there's a lot of details that need to be worked out, a lot of boxes that need to be checked as far as updating, just everybody about when things are due and getting the appropriate documents and environmentals and everything else. So I know Tim's
Yeah, the
office is
support that
very
we've
active.
received from ODOT has been tremendous. They really jumped in with both feet. Told several agencies to play nice together, and so it is going to be a good collaborative effort.
Great.
And not just the pathway, but going out into Perkins and into Huron. And ODOT had even talked about, and that was the thing when they dropped the RISE grant thing on us, RAISE grant. They said, look, we want to take that pathway all the way out to Vermillion. Carrie and I were like, oh, are you kidding me? But then they said, there's really not enough money to do it all the way to Vermillion, so we're going to stop at Huron. But you're going to have roundabouts at Perkins Ave where the train tracks are, intersect on Route 6. You're going to have a roundabout there. You'd have a roundabout at Camp, which is just a nightmare, that Camp in Route 6. And then at Rye Beach, and then the on-ramps. And then going further south, there's going to be more. It's an exciting project. The cooperation we've gotten from ODOT from the city has just been tremendous. So there's only 2 RAISE grants. Acadec has the RISE program.
Right.
And I get that anyways. So there's only 2 applications that are going to be submitted to the RAISE program statewide. It's a federal grant. And so I think we've got a really good shot. The city's already submitted previously for the pathway. So it's not like the federal government's unfamiliar with, what we're attempting to do. So it's really exciting.
That sounds
And
good.
it's been a long time in coming.
Would be needed in April then?
No, actually, there was a draft version that was routed to the various people that are involved. And then next week, I think, regional planning was looking at finalizing that letter, or ODOT was, or whoever's taking the lead on that, getting it out to us, and then we'll distribute it to the various boards, commissions.
Carrie has a draft she sent out yesterday, or she's finalizing. I don't know if
It
she
was
sent
sent
out.
yesterday.
Yeah. So there is a draft boilerplate letter of support that goes to the federal government that our office has put together. So it's being
Okay,
distributed
so-
to everybody.
but They'll need to be submitted by,
Technically, you can submit those after it's due, but we're going to be looking to get them by the end of March,
okay.
if possible.
I was trying to figure out how we do it since Mike, we figured, we don't,
I'm now present, so you have your quorum. I think.
well, we've got 5, we need 6, we need a
Oh, you do?
majority.
Is it 50% or 51%?
I don't know, we were debating, nobody seemed to have the answer if it was a majority or half.
I'm not sure we have 10 members right now, anyway, we might only have 9 members, so. I could real quick go on the website and see who the members are, and
It's,
I think you should go ahead and take action, and if somebody wants to contest it, let them. I don't think who's gonna.
No, I don't think anybody's going to contest it. I guess we just need to have somebody draft up the letter on behalf of the, and I'd be happy to do that and sign it as chairman, so.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we have a letter of support for this project from this body.
Okay,
And it'd be terrific, from my perspective, if you'd be willing to draft that and
right,
submit it on our behalf.
And I'll second that.
all right. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
can we just authorize the president to sign or the chairman to sign?
That's my intention.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Been moved and
Okay.
seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of a letter of support for, that's for the pathway project, please say, yes, Mike?
No, aye.
Aye, okay. Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And
One
you'll
of
have the template.
one of us will make sure that you
You get the
get
template,
it.
because I need to
Absolutely.
get it done in the next 2 weeks.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
okay.
I'll probably provide it to Kristen for distribution, just so I can maintain the proper
Yes,
And I
sequence.
apologize, but I'm going to have to leave.
That's fine.
I've got an 8:30.
that's fine. appreciate your being
No,
here.
just good discussion here and did a nice job presenting it. You have to remember that this project's been a long time coming.
Right.
There's been a lot of work, a lot of legwork by the city staff. Our staff, Carrie Whitaker from our staff, and Mr. Bajali worked diligently on making sure that this project kept moving forward. So
No,
Very
credit
good.
to all of them.
before Mr. King leaves, I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but if you have a quorum, you could vote on the minutes real quick.
Oh, sure, right.
I'll move the minutes be approved.
It's second by Mike. Any discussion on the last meeting's minutes approval, please? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question.
Yeah.
And maybe you've discussed this, but I don't remember. The pathway from between Sports Force and the old Caspers across that body of water, are you going across the water or down Cleveland Road?
There is a boardwalk that's the Heminger Ditch, so where Knights Inn is, we're connecting, there's a pathway that goes along Route 6 Cleveland Road from Knights Inn west, but at that node there, we're kind of heading towards Sports Force on a boardwalk across the ditch. There's going to be, it might be 100 feet off Cleveland Road, so it's not going to be right at Cleveland Road. It's not going to be parallel to the road. It's actually going to be angled more kind of directly towards the building there.
So we'll go over the water.
It'll go over the water.
Okay. Just wanted a clarification on that. Thank you.
And that section is not included in the application because it's so complicated. We've already done all the environmental work and everything else that's needed for that. ODOT was just like, can we keep out of that? Yes, absolutely.
And what's the approximate cost of the bridge going over Pipe Creek and the dimensions of that?
So the dimensions and the weight and the distribution are sized to handle emergency vehicles.
Okay.
The cost is a few million. I don't have that number off the top of my head. The cost estimate was prepared 2 years ago, so I'm pretty sure it's not accurate anymore. ODOT is updating all the numbers to this year's expected cost increases or next year's cost increases. And the one nice thing about it is that because we're farther along than the remainder of the project, it sounds like we'll be able to, if the money gets awarded, we could probably do it in 2 phases, which means that we could do ours earlier, meaning we would probably be able to save on 2 to 3 years worth of inflation if that's the case.
So you're saying that that bridge over Pipe Creek will accommodate emergency vehicles? It's not just a walk path, it's a road.
Right.
Are you talking from the pump station to where the pool was behind?
Right. Okay.
Madison?
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
We're not talking like 2 lanes of traffic here, we're talking wide enough for an EMT bus, right?
So will it be
have-
open to traffic or just emergency vehicles?
It'll be, I can't remember the clear span of it exactly, but it's going to be at least 10 feet wide. There might be a little bit of buffer on either side to fit one emergency vehicle if they need to go on it to get somewhere, but it will definitely not be open to motorized vehicles on a regular basis, and that includes golf carts or anything else.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
There was one other project I just wanted to give a quick
Sure,
update on. That's
please.
the Causeway Wetlands project. They're expecting to be completed with that by the end of March, so the end of this month. And that project has been exciting to see. I know I showed some aerials in here maybe in January or something like that, but it's really come along, and it's really, we're working on how to develop who to get to do a lot of the short-term monitoring and sampling for fish. We're working with Fish and Wildlife. working with Bowling Green, working with a bunch of different entities to look at nutrient loading, sediment disbursement, fish, just a bunch of different things like that over the next few years to see how the lake and the bay and the project is responding. And as you guys are aware, the ultimate goal is for nobody to own it except Mother Nature. Legally, the city will own it, but we're hoping that Mother Nature takes it over and does what she wants with it. So
When did you say that would be, like,
it's supposed to be completed at the end of March
of this year?
this year. And then the Corps of Engineers, this is the first phase of the first phase. So the Corps of Engineers will come in September, October timeframe when they do their dredging, and then they'll put the dredge materials. They're going to hydraulically pump the materials from the channel, put the pipe under water on the bay floor, bring it back up, and then pump into the area that we're creating. And then next year they'll do the same. And then once it settles enough and compacts enough, then we'll come back in after that and reshape it for the wetlands. So right now it's really just a big dewatering basin for the dredge material for a couple years.
Sweet.
How high will that bridge be? I'm sorry. Over Pipe Creek?
Oh, the bridge over Pipe Creek. I don't recall the exact height, but I know through the planning process and through the design process, it was large enough to accommodate the boats that visit that area south of there.
The boats will be able to get underneath it?
With a big fly bridge, getting up to
Okay,
the restaurant.
okay.
It would be pointless to have a bridge any higher than the existing bridges on the Causeway, I guess. Right?
I don't recall the exact height.
Right.
It's at least that high, yes.
Yeah, would be no point having it any higher than that. because- Right.
Right, yeah. I see your point. It's like a highway. The lowest bridge determines what goes back there, right?
The highest bridge determines
Arguably,
what
it could be lower, you could have gradation, but it would be pointless to have it higher.
Right.
It'd be defensible to have it lower.
Right. Right. I think we're talking the same thing, Mike.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay,
That's
All right.
That's all I had.
great. Okay, anything else that you had, Aaron, on your list? Okay, is there anything, David?
Well, you kind of reminded me of this, but where are we with the roundabout by Thirsty Pony? I mean, is that an active project that's?
Yeah, we've finished the conceptual. What we had done was we wanted to go back and reconfirm everything that was included in that original trans systems evaluation. We wanted to get more traffic data and more information before we just said, yes, a roundabout is the exact right, perfect solution for traffic. And through more traffic studies and everything else, it was concluded that the roundabout would be the best option. So now I think at the second meeting in March is our goal to bring back legislation to enter into that final detailed design for that. Now, that's not just the roundabout, that's going to be safety and signal improvements along that entire Cleveland Road corridor, as well as some turn lane extensions at Remington and I think maybe even at Sycamore. So that's still a project. It's still anticipated, I believe, in '24 to start construction. And as part of that, we're also, in conjunction with that, I wanted to make sure that we got the water lines improved in that Cleveland Road, Cedar Point Drive intersection, because we know that they've had breaks over the years there. And I don't want to get back into that intersection after we put a roundabout in. So we're going to do a water line project first and then do that project.
It seems like the traffic pattern has changed since the park closed and whatever, this is just like temporary fussing with stuff, or is that anticipation of water lines, or
So-
what's changing those lanes that go through and which ones don't, and where you turn and don't?
Yeah, so the first thing that changed it is the construction of the sports center and the additional traffic that came in. The thing that probably pushed it the most was the Gold Pass and the amount of traffic on the weekends and the gridlock that we had a few years ago throughout the city on some of those weekends, and trying to accommodate the summer seasonal flows versus the winter seasonal traffic volumes. So it's not easy, and we're hoping that the roundabout gives us one pattern that we don't have to keep modifying and changing. And what the traffic studies have all shown is that the majority of the traffic to and from Cedar Point is no longer using 250. They're coming, if you're coming east-west, they're coming Rye Beach down Route 6 or getting off at Fremont and heading up Venice and coming that way. So there's a lot less traffic up 250 and even less traffic on Route 4 to Cedar Point than what was back in the 60s and 70s and even 10 years ago when everybody was using Butler. It's just not used like it used to be because 250 is not used.
Is this a 2-lane roundabout?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
So you're prepared for a lot of skepticism, because you can, I don't doubt that they're right, that it probably is, but you can't put a single lane roundabout out in the country without discovering that everyone in town is a retired traffic engineer and knows that it won't work.
I would say that pretty much anything we do, we're prepared for a lot of skepticism.
Okay.
So, especially if it's a big change like that.
I mean, you can't add a stop sign without somebody saying it's going to kill somebody.
Right.
We've added a few stop signs over the last year, so, especially downtown.
Yes.
Downtown area. But no, I appreciate that.
Seems to be working.
Yeah. Is there any other business to bring forth?
I just have any updates on the rec center?
Not necessarily. I'd have to, I mean, I know that the discussions with Cedar Point and the parking tax and all those things, there was discussion about, putting money towards a new rec center. I don't think anything's been fully finalized, except for that there is an intent to have a rec center, and there's a desire this year to go through with conceptual and public processes and things like that if everything can get moving that quickly. So I'd have to defer to the city manager or others on exactly the details of that.
So it's not going to be at the old American Crane?
That
Property?
is the desired location for it right now, but I know that the public process part needs to take place first before that's 100% finalized.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I did look, just as a point of information, on the city's website, there are 9 members listed at this point. I thought we had an additional one appointed, but I don't see anything that says that. So, Kristen, you probably know better than I do.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. I have to go upstairs and look at my list that I have there.
The unique thing about that board is I don't think it specifies the exact number. There's some flexibility in whatever they want to
Right.
appoint. And the number was reduced, I think.
Yeah, we used to have 15, and I think they got it down to 10 at one point, and I forgot who went off and was not
Right,
replaced.
but I don't think they're obligated to name, right, unlike other boards.
Right, I think I would agree with that, so.
So we feel solid with our quorum at
So
5 out of 9.
we did have a quorum when Mike walked in.
Yep.
Either way.
Right. By the way, my apologies, I was unbelievably detained this morning. I meant to be here on time, I usually
Things happen. We appreciate your being here. All right. That being said, there's no community members here unless Kristen has some other input that she hasn't spoken yet. So we would be